What's up, YouTube? I'm going to review Dead Man Walking, the movie. And now, first of all, this is a very intense movie. When you watch it, you got to see it a few times to really get an idea, because every time you see it, you get a different message. Like, it tells the story of a nun who's kind of in the religious left. Politically, like, she's against the death penalty, she's opposed to murder, including executions. And, she's truly believes this moral opposition to the death penalty. And she has her definite point of view in this movie. And early on, she gets a letter from this inmate who says, basically, I'm kept in a little cell, I can't do anything, and basically he's telling her about his life. And so, the beginning of the movie, she's going over to Angola prison to meet this guy. And it gets pretty heavy when, they say lady on the hall, and they walk her through this hallway. And you hear buzzers as one door closes, as they remotely activate the next one. It's kind of an end of the road place when she goes in there. It just, there's the stink of death. I mean, literally, it just looks like a very dreary kind of place she's going to. And so basically, when she met the inmate, that's when the movie got heavy, and she had no clue what she was getting herself into. I mean, the fact of the movie was, this man had committed a heinous, atrocious act and destroyed two other families and had left quite an impact. And, it was a heavy situation. And when she tried to get herself involved in any way, she got herself in a lot of trouble. I mean, like, the victims' families were angry that the murderer of their kid had somebody helping him out, trying to save his life. They wanted to see them just get rid of that thing. I mean, they had been destroyed by this man, and they couldn't live straight again because of him. And they stole their kids from them, so they couldn't forgive him. And as the movie went on, it started to get heavier. But they opened different elements in this movie. Like, you saw Matthew Poncelet got a death sentence, and the other defendant did not get one, when the other defendant was just about as involved as he was. And the other guy probably should have been there, but he obviously didn't get the death penalty. So they said, well, how come he didn't and the other guy did? That doesn't seem fair. And then he says, oh, nobody's money is on death row. It's all the poor people that can't afford lawyers. But then as the movie shows, he'll say, oh, boo-hoo, I can't listen to music, I can't watch TV, I can't do anything. They took me out of my cell and moved me somewhere else, and I couldn't say bye to my friends. But then, as the movie goes on, you meet the victims' families, and they're very nice people who have been destroyed by this jerk. And when she goes into their house and they tell about the crime, that's when you start to see, okay, who is this dumb piece of trash? He's trying to complain about his life. This is what he did to these people. And he was just utterly brutal. And now we're supposed to suddenly feel sorry for him? I mean, it was really, really hurting her when she got involved in that. And you saw this jerk, and she was making herself into a monster trying to defend this guy because she looked sketchy. And the news media really did not like the way that she was getting involved in there, because they felt that this person had raped somebody and brutally murdered them, and now she's taken the side of this guy. Is she the Antichrist? And, the movie showed where there's a huge moral element in the justice system. Like, you had all these people that felt this moral obligation, with the death penalty, and how you had a lot of these people that were very morally conservative. And it was showing certain elements, but the movie really got intense. And you started to develop a relationship in this movie between the nun and this criminal or convict or, the inmate. And they didn't make him into a full-blown sociopath like a movie villain. They made it into a heavy character. Hardened, he's not an antisocial, manipulative con artist or a serial killer, but he committed a heinous, atrocious act. He's made out to be a worthless, ignorant person who shoots his mouth off. He says all this ignorant, racist diatribe and goes on tirades. But in the long run, he's the loser. And he's the big zero. And he's the big uneducated ignoramus. And he blames his problems in every group of people. Then he gets mad at the government. He gets mad blames his problems on blacks, blames his problems on welfare, blames his problems on the system, blames his problems on the victim's family, says, oh, I'm mad they're there to see me die, but he's a pathetic excuse for a person, and he's just a big fat loser with nothing going for him. And he's just such a big, empty-headed loser. And, he took those lives, but the movie shows when he starts acting like that, he's truly consumed with death. And he's so full of anger and hate because he truly knows he's going to die. And so it's eating him up. And so that's where the movie shows, he's somebody who did something horrible and he may feel some remorse for it, but they don't make him into a remorseless psycho. They make him into somebody that did something horrible. He kind of feels horrible about it, but then he also is scared to die, and they put other elements in there. And as the movie gets on, when the execution date gets set and they're getting closer and closer, it gets heavier. And when she goes to the pardon board, the victim's family was very angry that she was coming to the aid of him. And, there was no headway in there. They could not change the course of the case. I mean, the state had a mammoth case on top of this guy. He was really on super death row because he was one of the inmates that was actually going to go through the appeals courts. He was not somebody who's going to sit there for 20 or 30 years. And he was somebody with a very strong case and a notorious case that they were going to go through. And so they really were not going to cut him any breaks. And so as the movie went on, you saw, things started to get more and more intense. And he started needing her over there longer times, and he started to really lose it when she'd see him. And so he started becoming difficult to deal with. And, he was really consumed with death and knew his days were numbered. And, then at the end of the movie, that's when it really suddenly just was surprising. And, all of a sudden he's ranting and raving and saying, I'm mad at the kids for being there. I'm mad at the victims' families for going to watch me die. I'm mad that Mr. Delacroix wants to pull the plug on me himself. And he says all this hateful stuff, and all of a sudden she says to him, you destroyed families. And when she mentions about Jesus, and he says, oh, I'm like Jesus, I'm going to die. And she finally stands up. And this is where the movie got good, because the nun finally stood up to this jerk and put him back in his place and says, no, you destroyed lives. Jesus never killed anybody. You did. You committed a horrible act. And when she said that, all of a sudden he stopped, like, wow, wait a minute. And he started to think. And then she said to him, did you do it? And that's when it really got powerful. At the end of the movie, she finally redeemed him and said, did you take advantage of that person? He said, yes, ma'am. And he said, did you kill him? And she said, yes. And she said, did you kill the other person? And he said, yes, I did. And she said, you have to die with dignity. And you have to, you don't want to die with hate. And that's when it really got powerful. And, he finally stopped. And, it started to get really heavy at this point, because he was so consumed by the idea that he was going to be dead and they were going to be killing him, and he knew that he had no hope and he was a condemned man. And when he finally got taken into a new level and he was able to try and think better, kind of redeemed himself, it got better. And then it was also really good because one part of the movie said, okay, accept Jesus Christ, I'm saved. And she said, no, you're not. You have to believe in it. You have to be the better person. You can't just say you accept him, because that's just lip work. And it was really powerful because he went on a spiritual journey. And he was kind of an empty-headed person, and then he started to change. And as the execution scene came in, that's when it got heavy. Because, a lot of times people will see it and say, oh yeah, he had to have that happen. He had to die for what he did. But then when you see that those guards stripped him naked and slapped a diaper on him and all that, it looks dehumanizing and looks strange. And so, it kind of looks creepy with that clinical building in the death house. So, then the end is when it concludes it and kind of shows he had repercussions for his action and how she helped him accept his fate and tried to help out. And it was good she didn't just take one side and make you feel sorry for this man. You saw both sides. which really is much better.